Yeah, I kind of accidentally started a DC fan war on Twitter, and things got so out of hand that James Gunn himself replied to my tweet multiple times clarifying things. So it was an interesting week for me. Just a lot of stuff going on with this. The tweet got 1.4 million views, and there was just this war between Snyder Bros, the Snyder cultists, and everyone else. Now, let me give you the context for what started this, because some of you have lives and aren't aware of what goes on Twitter. So what happened was I tweeted out a clip from a podcast that James Gunn was on. It was Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. It was a really good episode. You should definitely listen to it if you have a chance. And there was a part up from there that I found fun. So I was like, I'm going to tweet this out. I didn't think it would get any type of traction like this. I just thought some of the people that follow me would enjoy it. So I tweeted it out, and man, it started a war. It wasn't immediate. It took a little bit for it to take off, but when it did, my mentions were just all over the place. I had so many people just all over replying to my tweet, and then also I got tagged in other stuff that was not a part of my tweet at all. Like, I got tagged in like edits of Lex Luthor and things, and it was like, yeah, it was interesting. So let me give you let me tell you what happened with all this. So I tweeted out this clip, and I titled it, well, I said on my tweet, Michael Rosenbaum making James Gunn promise DCU Lex won't be like BVS Lex Luthor, lettuce, mayonnaise, and onions. Just saying that Michael Rosenbaum in the clip, which I'll play in a minute so you can see it for yourself, I believed was just saying that, yeah, he doesn't want that Jesse Eisenberg Batman vs. Superman Lex Luthor. And he was making James Gunn promise that we'll get an actual Lex Luthor, not that guy. So without further ado, here's the clip.
If there were a Lex Luthor, promise me this. He'll have gravitas, or he'll be Lex Luthor. He won't be playing Lex Luthor, but he's more acting like this character or this or goofy or crazy. He's going to be something that's grounded and real. I know you. I'm sure that's
everything's grounded and real. Yeah, everything's grounded and real.
Because I'm not saying anybody's done that. I'm just saying that
maybe somebody's done that.
Maybe that's happened. But yeah.
And I thought it was a fun clip. I thought, oh man, Michael Rosenbaum, who in my opinion is far and away the best live action Lex Luthor we've ever gotten, which, to be honest, not much competition. There's been a bunch of great actors that have played Lex Luthor, but the writing for the Lexes that those guys have played, not the best, to where his Lex was definitely my favorite in terms of live action. And I thought it was cool seeing him, who feels like he has a little bit of ownership of the character, who maybe wasn't a big fan of Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of the character, that was just like, let's not do that again, please, because one of his friends, James Gunn, runs DC now, so he kind of put in that request. So I like that. I like that. I like seeing someone that's like doesn't have anything to do with the character anymore, but played the character once, has some fondness for it, and is like, please don't ruin him again. So I like that. But a lot of people didn't, and a lot of people were mad at James Gunn's response. I didn't even think about James Gunn's response when I tweeted out. I was all on Michael Rosenbaum. I thought it was funny what he said, but everyone was like, Michael Rosenbaum just taking a crap on Snyder. How dare he say all these things about Jesse Eisenberg, blah, blah, blah. And he then came in and clarified, because so many people were like, James Gunn's a piece of garbage. He said he's friends with Snyder. He talks so much crap about him, when if you watch the clip, he didn't talk crap about Snyder or Jesse Eisenberg or anything at all. But let me read you James Gunn's tweets, because he replied multiple times. Someone tagged him in a tweet saying, what is with the diss to Eisenberg? He's one of the best actors of our generation. And James Gunn said, I was not referring to Jesse. And then I believe it, yeah, the next day he replied again, because like I said, this tweet got really out of hand. So he just replied initially because he got tagged. Tweet had a little bit of traction, and then it just kept going. Just so many people were arguing, and he was getting tagged in all of it because someone tagged him now. So he was seeing all this different stuff, and so he replied again saying, in reading these replies, sometimes it seems like people are looking for things to get outraged about and have little sense of history. Although Donner's Superman movies are some of my favorites, I've spoken out publicly before and even written about it in EW back in the early 2000s, perhaps unwisely, that Lex Luthor is not my favorite part of those films. The portrayal can lean campy, and I wish he seemed like a greater threat and wish he'd played it bald throughout. I regret having intimated that I didn't like any Lex on Michael's show, but there it is. For the record, I think Hackman is one of the 5 greatest actors of the 70s and 80s, and he starred in some of my favorite movies. I just didn't love him as Lex. And he also replied a third time to someone else that was talking about Gene Hackman, where he's like, yes, there were some great aspects to it, but not everything was bad, but he wasn't my favorite, essentially is what he said in the third tweet. But yeah. That's what James Gunn said, because he saw so many people attacking him and talking about like how bad he is and what he said about Jesse Eisenberg. And yeah, if you actually watch the full podcast, you see that James Gunn does talk about Hackman a little bit there. He does talk about him in the podcast and kind of jokingly say that Hackman was definitely not the best Lex, not his favorite version. So it makes sense. I personally believe that Rosenbaum was referring to Eisenberg. I didn't think James Gunn was. I believe James Gunn in response. I don't think he's lying. I do believe he's talking about Hackman. Like he said, there's a history of him talking about how Hackman's not his favorite portrayal of Lex. So I think he's telling the truth. But that being said, the truth has never stopped Snyder cultists before. So a lot of them just kept getting mad and were like, oh, he's lying. He's trying to save face. And so I thought it would be fun to read some of my favorite tweets in response to this, because I got some good entertainment out of this, and I want y'all to as well. One of my favorite tweets from all this came real early on. Before the tweet got a lot of traction and took off, someone said, not even Snyder Bros can defend that performance. And it was hilarious because this was the calm before the storm. This was before Snyder Bros. Replied to the tweet and talking about how amazing Eisenberg was. And then after this, it just blew up. And so that one was some good foreshadowing with that tweet. Then Tanner actually summed up my thoughts on Eisenberg that I've said for years, ever since BVS came out, and I'll read you his tweet. He said, I fully maintain that Jesse did a great job acting in that film. It's just that the role he was written was nothing like what Lex should be, but I don't believe that means his acting was any worse. That's exactly what I've said from the beginning. He was miscast, and they had him play his same character from The Social Network. He was Mark Zuckerberg. That was on everyone else involved with him. That was on Snyder and the writers and all of them. It was not on Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg should not be cast as Lex. He can't play that character. And also, they didn't even try to attempt to have him play that character. They had him just like, hey, play the very fast-talking, sort of snarky, smart guy that you play in every other movie. Play that, because since The Social Network, he's kind of been playing the same character in a lot of movies. Like if you watch the Magician movies, then he's basically the same. It's just with magic instead of social networks. And yeah, so I don't blame Jesse Eisenberg for the performance. He did exactly what he was paid to do, but what he was paid to do was play a character that was not Lex Luthor, sadly. Someone said, imagine that we just been given a glance at what Snyder has evolved Lex to be at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was leading to something of which we were getting familiar with. There's no reason to trash or discard an unfinished visionary plan until its arc is finished. Yeah, you can definitely trash this horrific portrayal of Lex Luthor. Like, yeah, you can do that. When a villain is the main villain of a movie, even if you're setting them up for things later on, you can still judge them in that one movie. That's like if you see Star Wars, if you see A New Hope, you can judge Vader off A New Hope. There's so much more that's added on later. There's so many other things that Lucas did and had planned at the time. But you can judge it off of A New Hope, and guess what? You can judge him off A New Hope, and guess what? Vader's amazing. Off that one movie. It's not like, but you don't even know that he's Luke's father. You don't know that he's going to turn on the Emperor. You don't, there's nothing. It's like, yeah, because this is one movie. You can judge him off that one movie. Same with Lex Luthor. You can't just be like, Zack Snyder needed a couple more 3-hour films to really make Lex Luthor. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Sorry. I do forget sometimes that there are people out there that genuinely love this Lex Luthor. But then this week reminded me of that. There are so many replies that are saying that, not only is he a great Lex Luthor, but he's one of the best villains in cinematic history, and Jesse Eisenberg gave one of the best performances of all time. Yeah, I guess we watched 2 different movies, but it's very interesting to be like, oh yeah, there are some wild opinions out there, but everyone's entitled to their own opinion, of course. As so many people attack Michael Rosenbaum, so many people are like, CW actor, this guy hasn't been anything, he's just mad because his career dead. Jesse Eisenberg's one of the best actors of this generation, how dare they say anything bad about him? It's like, dude, they didn't say anything about Jesse Eisenberg. They were implying that Lex Luthor was not their favorite. They didn't like it. That's perfectly okay. They never trashed Zack Snyder or Lex Luthor. But so many people got upset. Man, Snyder bros are really sensitive. Really sensitive. You say anything and they get upset. And it's funny because, I've said this before, and I think Batman v Superman is a garbage movie, but I'm a fan of the majority of Zack Snyder movies. I think Batman v Superman's horrible, but I like Man of Steel. I liked Zack Snyder's Justice League. I like Watchmen. I like 300. I like the majority of Zack Snyder movies I've seen. I just think Batman v Superman was horrible, and every decision made in that movie was just atrocious. But man, it makes me not even want to be a fan of anything, seeing these people that just react this way to anything with Snyder. It's weird. I've never seen this attachment to any other director. And then, of course, there were plenty of people who committed the cardinal sin when it comes to Lex Luthor, and that is spelling it Luthor. It will never cease to make me angry seeing people that try to have an opinion on Luthor and spell it Luthor. This isn't a typo. This happens all the time. This isn't a typo. People legitimately, because they haven't read a comic book in their life, so they've never seen Luthor spelled. They just hear it and it's like, oh, it sounds like Luthor. He's Lex Luthor. No, it's Luthor. There's an O. And anyone that spells it Luthor should never have an opinion on Lex Luthor. They should never be allowed to have an opinion on the character. So seeing so many people that don't even, and this came from both sides, by the way. This wasn't just Snyder Bros. This wasn't just people that are anti-Snyder. This came from both sides. Anyone that spells it Luthor should not have an opinion on this character. Your license is revoked. Shut up. Go sit in the corner. This is just one of my pet peeves. It annoys me to no end. Like, they pronounce it Luthor. They spell it Luthor. It's Luthor. I can't stand it. It's ever since I was a little kid, it's been one of my pet peeves. Because, like, pick up a comic book. Read a Superman comic. I'm begging you. So that way you can realize that it's Luthor and not Luthor, you idiot. As far as this whole situation goes, though, I agree with what Rosenbaum was saying, assuming he was talking about Eisenberg and that. I hate his portrayal of Lex. I do not think it's Eisenberg's fault. I don't think he's a bad actor. I don't think he did bad acting job in Batman v Superman. I think he did exactly what Snyder wanted him to do. That being said, I think what Snyder wanted him to do was completely wrong for the character and was horrible. And something else I want to address that I hate is I see so many people saying, he is actually comic accurate. Read Superman Birthright. Yeah, I have read Superman Birthright, unlike the person bringing that up, because the only similarities is that he's got the longer red hair. That's it. He doesn't act like Birthright Superman at all. People just see the panel where he's got the long hair, and they're like, it's just like Batman v Superman. No. If you actually read that character, he acts nothing like Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor shoving Jolly Ranchers people's mouths and making all these weird sounds constantly in the movie, and just everything about him. Nothing like Lex Luthor, not even Birthright Lex Luthor. Just because they look the same doesn't mean they act the same. They don't. But again, I agree with what Rosenbaum was saying. I want a Lex that is more grounded and feels like Lex Luthor and has a presence when he comes into a room, and not just like some little idiot running around. And I hope we get that with DCU Lex. Also, one of my big things that I want, that I hate, that I get wrong almost every time, other than Smallville, with Lex Luthor, is they always make him like 20 years older than Superman. They're supposed to be in the same age range. He's not supposed to be way older than him. He's supposed to be within, like, in my opinion, always like 2-3 years of each other. Because I enjoy it when they, like, grew up in Smallville together and then went their, like, separate ways and everything, and they're, like, similar ages. I think it makes it more interesting dynamic, instead of just, like, Superman's 20 years younger than Lex Luthor. I hate that. I hate having an old-ass Lex. I do not like that. Please don't do that, James Gunn, if you happen to ever watch this somehow. But, yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think about this whole situation? And, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all later.
Hey, skinny boy, saucy boy, I be running to the bank. Yeah, you know I hit the gas in the whip full tank. Riding past the ocean while I'm listening to Frank.